Okay, so let's start with this chapter. Why you will soon be playing Megatrillions. Neglect of probability. So this chapter is basically the thing is that suppose we have a chance of winning uh, dollar 10 trillion. I think it's not writing here. Dollar 10 million we have a chance of winning, and in the second thing we have a chance of winning $10,000. Okay, but the chance of winning 10 million is in within 100 million people, and the chance of winning 10,000 is winning within 10,000 people. Okay, so 100 million and 10,000. So the odds of winning 10 million is very hard, like very bad, very risky odds. Okay, because in 100 million people we are competing with for $10 million, and for $10,000 we are competing among 10,000 people. So there is a high probability that we will win $10,000, but 10 million winning $10 million is a very low probability. But our mind is in conditioned in such a way that we don't consider the odds, that is the probability. We don't consider the probability, we neglect it, and we take decision based on emotion, and we will go for the 10 million wala option. 100 among 100 million people, 10 million winning of 10 million. So that's the thing we will learn, that how we are biased towards probability, how we don't consider it while making decisions. Okay, so let's start. There is two games of chance. In the first you will win 10 million, and in the second 10,000. Which do you play? If you win the first game, it changes your life completely. You can quit your job, tell your boss where to go and live off the winnings. If you hit the jackpot in the second game, you can take a nice vacation in the Caribbean, but you will be back at your desk quite enough to see your postcard arrive. Okay, so 10,000, if you win 10,000 only, so you will not be you can only take a vacation, but 10 million is a very big sum, you can retire. So the probability of winning is 1 in 10 million, 1 in 10 million. Okay, and in the first game, and 1 in 10,000 in the second game. So which do you choose? Our emotions draw us to the first game, even though the second is 10 times better, objectively considered expected win times probability. Therefore the trend is towards even larger jackpots, mega millions, mega billions, mega trillions. No matter how small the odds are, we will go for million, no matter how small the odds are. In a classic experiment from 1972, participants were divided into two groups. The members of the first group were told that they would receive a small electric shock. In the second group, subjects were told that the risk of this happening was only 50%. Okay, so two groups were divided. The first group people were told that they would receive a small electric shock. ठीक है, सेकेंड ग्रुप को बोला कि शॉक मिलने का प्रोबेबिलिटी 50% है. द रिसर्चर्स मेजर्ड फिजिकल एंग्जाइटी, हार्ट रेट, नर्वसनेस, स्वेटिंग एक्सेट्रा shortly before commencing. The results were well shocking. There was absolutely no difference. Participants both group were equally stressed. उनको इलेक्ट्रिक शॉक मिलने वाला है बोल के दे वर इक्वली स्ट्रेस्ड. नेक्स्ट द रिसर्चर्स अनाउंस्ड अ सीरीज ऑफ रिडक्शन इन प्रोबेबिलिटी ऑफ अ शॉक फॉर सेकंड ग्रुप में 50% से दे टोल्ड दैट 50% टू 20% प्रोबेबिलिटी हो जाएगा, या 10% प्रोबेबिलिटी है कि आपको शॉक मिलेगा, 5% प्रोबेबिलिटी है कि आपको शॉक मिलेगा. द रिजल्ट स्टिल देयर इज नो डिफरेंस. हाउएवर व्हेन दे डिक्लेयर्ड दे वुड इंक्रीज द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ द एक्सपेक्टेड करंट, both group anxiety level rose. Okay, बट आफ्टर दैट पहले वो लोग प्रोबेबिलिटी रिड्यूस किए कि आपको 50% से 20-10, बट फिर वो लोग बोले कि स्ट्रेंथ का मतलब जो इलेक्ट्रिक शॉक का इंटेंसिटी बढ़ा देंगे. तो आप इंक्रीज द स्ट्रेंथ, तो इंक्रीज कर देंगे स्ट्रेंथ, तो दोनों ग्रुप का एंग्जाइटी लेवल बढ़ गया अगेन बाय द सेम डिग्री. ठीक है. This illustrates that we respond to the expected magnitude of event. We respond to the magnitude of event, the size of jackpot or the amount of electricity, but not to its likelihood. Okay, magnitude मतलब strength बढ़ा दिया. So उस we respond to that after पता चला जब that strength has been increased. After we knew that the strength has been increased, we got stressed. But when the probability got reduced, we did our stress level did not go down. It was constant. Okay, so likelihood, we did not respond to the likelihood, we responded to the magnitude. In other words, we lack an intuitive grasp of probability. Okay, the proper term for this is neglect. This is neglect of probability, and it leads to errors in decision making. We invest in startups because the potential profit makes dollar signs. flash before our eyes, but we forget or are too lazy to investigate the slim chances of new businesses actually achieving such growth. Similarly, following extensive media coverage or a plane crash, we cancel flights without really considering the minuscule probability of crashing, which of course remains the same before and after such a disaster. Okay, so this is the uh, thing कि plane crash का भी news से भी respond, but the probability of, if you see the data, the probability of plane crashing is very less compared to other forms of accident like car accident, rail accident, other road accident. So many amateur investors compare the investment solely on the basis of yield. For them, Google shares make a return of 20%. Must be twice as good as property that returns 10%. Okay, Google ka shares are more good. Okay, that's wrong. It would be a lot smarter to consider both investments risks. But then again, we have no natural feel for this, so we often turn a blind eye to it. We didn't consider the risk. Google shares investment and property investments are both very different things. Both have very different set of risks. But we have a no natural fear for risks. We turn a blind eye to it. We turn to return only. Back to the experiment with the electric shocks. In group B, the probability of getting a jolt was further reduced from 5% to 4% to 3%. Only when the probability is zero did the group B differently responded differently than group A. So यहाँ पे उनका probability group B का 50% था, उसको reduce करके यहाँ पे 5% तक ले आया था और further it got reduced to 3%. But जब तक वो zero नहीं हुआ, till the probability is zero, people did not respond. People were stressed even then. After a 0% risk, which is infinitely better, 0% risk seemed infinitely better to them. To test this, let's examine two methods of treating drinking water. Suppose a river has two equally large tributaries. One is treated using method A, which reduces the risk of dying from contaminated water from 5% to 2%. Okay, and method B 1% to 0%. Okay, so which method is better? We will consider method B is better because the thing is becoming zero, the risk is becoming zero. Okay, so which if you think most people, you will opt for method B. Why will you opt for method B? Which is silly because with method A we are reducing 3% of contamination and with method B only 1%. But our brain responds to this 1% only. We don't see the other risk reducing. Which is silly because with measure A 3% fewer people die and with B just 1% fewer. Method A is three times as good. This fallacy is called zero risk bias. Okay, we are always biased towards zero risk policy, zero risk things. A classic example of this is the US Food Act, which prohibits food that contains cancer causing substances instituted to achieve zero risk of cancer. This ban sounds good at first, but it ended up leading to a use of more dangerous food additives. It also absurd, as Paracelsus illustrated in the 16th century. Poisoning is always a question of dosage. Furthermore, this law can never be enforced properly since it is impossible to remove the last banned molecule from food. Each farm would have to function like a hyper sterile computer chip factory, and the cost of food would increase 100-fold. Economically, zero risk rarely makes sense. One exception is when the consequences are colossal, such as deadly, highly contagious virus escaping from a biotech laboratory. So this is an example of food. In US, they prohibited food which caused cancer, but to achieve zero risk of cancer. But zero risk is can never be achieved. Zero risk. If they want to achieve zero risk in food contamination, so they have to grow every food in a very highly sterile environment. Okay, hyper sterile environment, they have to grow the food. And because of that, just a second. Okay, yes, so because of that the cost would increase very much. Okay, the only exception in this case is a very highly deadly virus which we have to contain, like zero risk. We have no intuitive grasp of risk and thus distinguish poorly among different threats. The more serious the threat and the more emotional the topic, such as radioactivity, the less reassuring a reduction in this seems to us two researchers at the University of Chicago have shown that people are equally afraid of 99% chance as they are of 1% chance of contamination by toxic chemicals, and irrational response but a common one. So basically, our personality is that we neglect probability. Okay, even if there is a chance of 1% of something happening, we are stressed about it, but we don't focus on other things. We just want a 0% risk, 0% risk in probability terms. So that's what is told here, that people are equally afraid of 99% chance as they are of 1% chance of contamination by toxic chemicals. And irrational response. This is an irrational response. 99% chance versus 1% chances, like a very reduced chance of contamination, but we respond to it in a similar way. Okay, thanks.